Alright, for this video I want to go through a sample form 1040X to file an amended 2023 tax return. So in this example we're going to look at a taxpayer that needs to file an amended return to change her filing status. So I've got the 1040X here, which we'll go through. It's just 2 pages long, but it also includes the amended, so our adjusted Form 1040 as well. We've also got the original Form 1040 that was filed that needs to be fixed. And I've got the Form 1040 instructions here with the 2023 tax tables. And then lastly, I've got just one slide here covering some background on amended returns and some details on the fact pattern itself. So when we talk about making changes to a 1040, we're looking at amended tax returns or superseded tax returns. So with amended tax returns, we're not replacing the original return. We're just correcting things that were omitted or their errors on that previous filing. Now, amended returns, you actually can file these anytime, right? But there are going to be certain statute of limitations that might apply if you're trying to file an amended return to get a refund, right? So if you're filing to fix something and you're hoping to get money back, there are some general statute of limitations that apply. And so normally when we talk about refund claims, you've got to file before the later of the 2 dates. So it's 3 years from the date you filed your return or 2 years from the date you paid the tax. So most taxpayers, if you figure out pretty quickly that you made a mistake, you can file this amended return and it shouldn't be any issue. Now, superseded returns, these are designed to replace the original return completely. So it's as if you never even filed that first return. Now, superseded returns are better, but there are greater limitations, right? So that it has to be filed after you submit your original return, but before the filing deadline, including extension. So you have a much more narrow window to be able to file a superseded return. All right, so let's have a look at our fact pattern here. So we have Jane, taxpayer. She's a single parent with one child, Emily, who's 7 years old, and she is Jane's qualifying child for federal tax purposes. Now, Jane timely filed her 1040 on March 31st, 2024, and she did not file an extension request. Now, Jane didn't realize until May 2024 that she mistakenly used single as her filing status rather than head of household. Now, Jane is going to file this 1040X to correct the filing status, and the ultimate changes here are going to be an increase to her standard deduction, and she's using different federal income tax tables. So let's have a look at the original return so we can get a sense of what went wrong. So she filed as a single filing taxpayer. She did correctly claim her daughter as a dependent, but here are the big changes. So on line 12, when you claim a standard deduction, she's claiming the standard deduction for a single filing taxpayer. Right, so single filers only get $13,850, but if you're filing as head of household for 2023, you'll get a $20,800 standard deduction. The other element is her line 16 calculation for taxes. So the line 16 tax calculation for single filing taxpayers use a different table. So the single filing taxpayers have a table with these varying taxable income ranges and rates, and head of household is a completely different table. So those are the 2 big changes that are going to be happening when she files this amended return. So if we look at the 1040X here, we've got her name, Social Security at the top, and then the amended return status. Use the return status that you are the correct one, right? So in this case, we are changing from single to head of household, so we want to use head of household. Now, the columns A, B, and C, pretty straightforward. Column A are the original amounts reported on the return. So if we were to look at her original tax filing here, what we want to see is her adjusted gross income, the standard deduction that was claimed, the taxable income, and then the tax calculated. So we have her original AGI. You can see there on line 2A, the standard deduction that was claimed. We have her taxable income, $71,475. The tax calculated, $11,012. She's got her child tax credit that she claimed, the amount of federal withholding on her wages, and so everything there looks good. Now, The original refund that she got was this line 18 amount, $3,488. So if I quickly go back here, you can see at the bottom, there's her original refund, $3,488. So when we make these changes, she should be able to get even more money back. So the correct amount is in column C, and then the net change is the difference. So you can see here the income didn't change, right? We're just changing our filing status. So $85,325 remains as her adjusted gross income, but the standard deduction is increasing to $20,800. All right, so we've reduced our taxable income by $6,950, and then the tax calculated is now being calculated using the same, so QDC GTW, that stands for Qualified Dividends Capital Gains Tax Worksheet. And the reason she has to use that tax worksheet in addition to the tables is because she has some qualified dividend income. So if you have qualified dividend income and you have some capital gains, you should be using the qualified dividend and capital gain worksheet because that'll help you calculate your tax at those preferential rates. So now that she's adjusted for the correct amount of tax based on this income, $7,877, the child tax credit remains the same. The amount of federal withholding on her wages remains the same. So now we're just trying to figure out, okay, how much more money should we get back now that we have increased standard deduction and a lower tax calculation using those head of household tables. So the line 18 amount is that original tax refund. On line 19, we want to subtract line 18 from line 17, and we're left with $9,012. Line 20 says, if line 11, column C, is more than 19, enter the difference. So in this case, we don't owe additional taxes, right, because our taxable income and our tax went down. Line 21, if line 11, column C, is less than 19, enter the difference here. So if we look at line 11, column C, right here, $5,877, this number is less than line 19 of $9,012. So we subtract the two and we get a difference of $3,135. This is the amount of additional tax refund that Jane is going to be able to claim. So $3,135 is going to be her additional tax refund. Now, page 2, we have to provide some additional information here. So part 1, dependents. Even if you're not changing the number of dependents that you're claiming, you still always report the dependents here. So Emily, taxpayer, her social security number, she's Jane's daughter, and she was eligible for the child tax credit. So that was correctly reported on the original return. There's no changes to that. So we have one dependent being claimed on the tax filing. In part 2, explanation of changes. The instructions ask that if you're changing your filing status, the first element you should put is simply changing the filing status. So we've added that there, and then we've provided some additional language here that just reaffirms that we're eligible to claim the head of household status. So we've described here the amended return changes the taxpayer's filing status from single to head of household. Taxpayer meets the requirements to use head of household under Treasury Reg Section 1.2-2B1. Taxpayer is unmarried at the end of the year and maintains a household with her daughter, Emily, taxpayer, who's a qualifying child for federal tax purposes. All right? And so always a good practice. I like to attach the corrected return and then just stamp it as amended, so it's clear that, okay, these are all the changes that were made. This is not to be processed, right? We're just processing the 1040X, but that's so that the IRS, or the revenue agent reviewing everything, can see that you've done all the calculations correctly, and so you are entitled to that refund claim. All right, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.